Surrey Board of Trade supports and attracts business to Surrey. We are a city-building business organization. We represent 6,000 business contacts as members, and some of them are in the taxi industry. I wanted to just underscore the fact that we are an independent voice of business with a diversified service portfolio that includes instigating change at all government levels to benefit business industries. We're a concierge of connections, and we provide benefit to save business time and money, as well as providing international trade support. I'd like to recognize in the audience today several taxi industry officials. My board director, one of my board directors is here as well. Thank you so much for attending. The Surrey Board of Trade, we have always advocated for a level playing field for the taxi industry. We have been proponents of the ride-sharing industry. We are advocating for both industries because, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a transit and transportation crisis, not only in Surrey, but in all of Metro Vancouver. Consumers need to have choices. We want to have healthy, vibrant industries at all levels, and we want a healthy and vibrant taxi industry as well. So we're asking the BC government to take a leadership opportunity to remove red tape for the taxi industry. And we are asking everyone to sign a petition, with the deadline being March 16th, to send a note to the BC Transportation Minister, Claire Trevina, who is well aware of our position, to ask for one thing, and that is to remove the archaic boundaries. 2,500 taxis in Metro Vancouver are deadheading. They are compromised with this red tape in order to move around our region. So on the screen you will see what we know is the taxi industry matters to our economy. The ride sharing is an important addition to our economy. The red tape for the taxi industry must be removed so that taxis can cross city boundaries and pick up and drop off passengers whenever they need to. The challenge: ride-sharing companies have been given large operating areas by the Passenger Transportation Board in British Columbia. For example, Region 1 encompasses an area from Whistler to Hope and includes Squamish and Lillooet, Metro Vancouver, and the Fraser Valley Regional Districts. Local taxi companies were promised a fair and level playing field to compete with the ride-sharing industry. This has not happened. Currently, archaic government red tape forces taxis to drive back and to deadheading is what it's called, after dropping off passengers in neighboring municipalities. Deadheading, ladies and gentlemen, leads to inefficient use of taxi fleets, increased congestion, greenhouse gas emissions, higher costs, longer wait times for passengers, and lower income for drivers. The call to action and what success looks like, again, to reiterate, we want these archaic boundaries to be removed. One ask, and to allow these 2,500 taxis in Metro Vancouver to pick up and drop off anywhere in the Lower Mainland to serve the public better. We want local taxis to compete with ride-hailing companies, but on a level playing field without any boundaries. This is true economic action that will improve customer service. We are changing this public narrative for the taxi industry around partnership and innovation. Let's remove the politics and focus on true economic action. So the petition is on the screen, it's on the tables, it's called at ipetitions.com, and you have until March 16th to sign this petition. We are meeting with BC's Transportation Minister in a couple of weeks, face-to-face on this matter, and she's certainly aware of our advocacy over the past couple of years. But to tell you a little bit more, I wanted you to hear From the taxi industry, please help me welcome Gurdeep Sahota from Sunshine Counts.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by thanking Anita for the introduction and for hosting this morning's press conference. I'd like to also thank everyone for coming. Taxi operators are small business persons and an important part of the local economy. They play a critical role in the provision of transportation services across Metro Vancouver. Approximately 2,500 taxis are licensed to provide service in the Lower Mainland, and these taxi jobs support thousands of hardworking owner-operators, drivers, and their families. To so many of us, this business has helped realize our Canadian dream of owning a home and putting our kids through college so that they can lead fulfilling lives and give back to this great country. Sadly, due to government red tape, our businesses are open only 50% of the time. No business, big or small, can survive, much less succeed, if they're only allowed to open half of the time. The reason we're here today is to speak out about this inequity and the lack of a fair, level playing field between taxis and ride-hailing. During consultations with government officials and the PTP, we were led to believe that there would be a level playing field with respect to regulations and the operating environment. However, when the regulations were announced last September, we were shocked, surprised, and very disappointed. While the advent of ride-hailing in BC was never in doubt, we continue to have serious concerns about the regulatory regime that has been put in place by the provincial government for TNS services versus archaic rules for taxis. TNS companies are allowed to operate in large areas. For example, Region 1 stretches from Whistler through Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley all the way up to Hope. Within these large zones, TNS vehicles are free to pick up and drop off their passengers anywhere. By contrast, taxi drivers are not allowed to pick up fares outside their municipal boundaries and are forced to drive back empty. This is called deadheading and a colossal waste of critical transportation resources. Deadheading leads to inefficient use of taxi fleets, increased congestion, GHG emissions, higher operating costs, longer wait time for passengers, and lower income for drivers. In short, this is a losing proposition for everyone, and it negatively impacts customer service. This is unacceptable in 2020 and should not be allowed to continue. Last month, the PTB made decisions on applications by TNS companies and licensed Uber and Lyft to start operations in BC. Our taxi companies want an environment where we can compete with ride-hailing services. Archaic red tape, like municipal boundaries for taxis, prevents our companies from providing timely service to our customers. Metro Vancouver is the only major regional district with boundaries for taxis in all of British Columbia. For example, the CRD Capital Regional District has 13 municipalities, including Victoria, which is the seat of our government, and there are no boundaries for taxis. Taxis can cross municipal borders to pick up passengers there, but here in the Lower Mainland, we're not free to do so. This is not fair. We are ready and willing, but unable to compete with Uber and Lyft because of debilitating red tape, which inhibits us, and that is why we are launching this online petition today, and to hopefully gain support from the public. To all open-minded persons, this issue is a no-brainer. We are therefore today calling on the Honourable Claire Trevena, BC's Minister of Transportation, to remove these archaic taxi boundaries and allow the 2,500 taxis in Metro Vancouver to pick up and drop off passengers anywhere in the Lower Mainland. Our local taxis, as all of my friends back in there will attest to, want to compete with ride-hailing, but on a level playing field, without any boundaries to hold us back. I'm going to conclude my remarks by saying that we're again thankful to the Surrey Board of Trade and CEO Anita Haberman for their support in our quest for fairness, and sincerely hope that this initiative will succeed in removing red tape and untie the hands of our drivers so they can compete with Uber and Lyft. With this, I thank everyone, and we're ready to answer any questions you have.
Yes.
Number of Vancouver taxi companies, like 9 or 10, just comes under Vancouver taxi companies. They don't want to like meet boundaries.
Well, our friends in Vancouver are free to have their opinion. In a free and democratic country like Canada, there can never be equanimity or unanimity of opinions. Right now, we're looking at all these protests with respect to different pipelines. Within the sectors that are areas that are, or the people that are affected by there's no one point of view. Yet, it does not stop governments from doing the right thing by approving these pipelines. So we are calling on Minister Trevina to ignore the internal politics or divisions or of opinion within the taxi industry and do what is right for the drivers and what is right for the public. We have a resource that is being underutilized, and we want our drivers to be able to compete and make an honest living.
Janet, you're next.
I thought the license agreement that was worked out with the Mayor's Council on TransLink was going back to the Passenger Transportation Board and the province for rejigging to go back to the municipalities for a vote. Is that not what they're working on right now, a level playing field?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So the Mayor's Council, I think on January 30th, put forward a position where they said they wanted one intermunicipal business license for ride-hailing companies across the 32 municipalities that stretch out from Whistler all the way out to Hope. And that would allow ride-hailing companies to apply for just one license and operate across the region. They have also, and we also want to thank Surrey Mayor Doug McCallum for advocating for a level playing field. A lot of our drivers live and work here in Surrey, and he knows of the problems that our drivers and companies are facing. So, the intermunicipal business license is good, but at this point in time, the way the license regime is set in place, it would only apply to ride-hailing companies and not taxis.
Next question.
But Minister Trevina said this comes under PTB. They have the authority, the ministry don't have the authority to keep these boundaries.
Thank you so much for asking that question, Prabhu. So we have gone down this route with the PTB before. The authority rests with the minister. In 2011, 70 suburban taxi companies applied to get their licenses changed to allow them to operate in downtown Vancouver on the weekends to deal with that gong show that everybody knows occurs when people converge on the downtown from all over the Lower Mainland for big events or just a night out on the town and are unable to get a safe ride home from the local taxi companies. The PTB, while they rejected applications from 10 of our fellow companies, they did license 7 suburban taxi companies to operate a total of 38 taxis in downtown Vancouver on the weekends from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. That decision of the PTB was announced on October the 2nd, 2012. Immediately, it was challenged in the courts by the Vancouver taxi companies. They lost at the Supreme Court level. They appealed it, lost at the BC Court of Appeal. And then Vancouver City Council brought in 3 successive 6-month moratoriums to block the operation of these 38 taxis and render the decision of that PTB null and void. And finally, in April of 2017, City Council of Vancouver finally permanently amended their bylaw to state that any taxi company which had a license outside the City of Vancouver could not apply for a vehicle for hire license in Vancouver. It actually took the provincial government to rectify this when they brought in the omnibus decision encompassed in Bill 55, which was passed in the legislature in November of 2018, which swept aside the power of these municipalities to block the decision of the PTB. So while, yes, the PTB may have been given this area to look into, but ultimately, we all know that it's the provincial government which has the power to make this policy decision.
Janet.
This issue of deadheading's been going on for years, if not decades, correct? And I understand why you're fighting it now with ride sharing here, you want a level playing field, but why haven't we heard more from the taxi industry before now about this archaic policy of deadheading? Why haven't you people been fighting harder for it in the past? Maybe you have, I just haven't heard about it.
Sunshine Cabs has been advocating for licenses outside of the North Shore since 1984. We have been following the proper protocols through government channels, through our associations. However, a lot of those efforts have not borne fruit, and with the advent of ride-hailing, that now presents a clear and present danger to the survival of the taxi industry without these reforms. So, everybody within the taxi companies now knows that since ride-hailing has come into operation, a lot of our vehicles are now being parked by drivers who are leaving to drive for Uber, because with Uber and Lyft, they can pick up and drop off anywhere. Whereas if they continue to drive taxis, their hands are tied. We want Minister Trevena to untie our hands.
So you've been fighting for this since 1984, and you've been getting pushback ever since then from Liberal and NDP government?
Absolutely, and also local governments as well.
Other questions?
One more.
One more city.
Okay. Because you also spoke about ride-hailing, and taxi industry also suggesting cap on the ride-hailing. Are you sure about that? Like they wanna put cap on Uber, like for example, taxi, they wanna put the cap on ride-hailing as well.
Well, number one is the Surrey Board of Trade. We want thriving taxi industry, a thriving taxi industry base, and a thriving ride-sharing industry base, because consumers want choice. The business community wants choice in order to move goods. How that's going to be in terms of caps and all of that remains to be seen. We're going to be discussing all of that with BC's Transportation Minister on March the 6th. We're having a pre-meeting with her prior to the main event at the Surrey Board of Trade lunch event. So we will see what happens. Other questions? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending this press conference. Please spread the word about our petition, and we will be doing the same through the BC Chamber Network. And is there one more question from the media?
I just wanted a group picture if possible.
Yeah, we'll get.